What do you mean the crime data isn't accurate? Good afternoon. So I devoted a live stream to this morning, but it's such a big issue that I thought that it would be good if we went over it a little bit more. I thought this issue was dead a number of years ago, and it seemed to come back because Redfin just made a press release and they announced that they don't believe that neighborhood crime data should belong in real estate listing sites. Now, I am I go back and forth, but at the end of the video, I'll give you my belief in what should be done. But what's fascinating to me is I thought this was an issue that was solved a while back, and apparently it's not. What I'm going to do is read the statement, and then I have my thoughts, and then we'll go from there. If you feel strongly one way or another after watching the video, put a comment in the comment section below, and we'll just go over it. It's not an issue that's going to be solved in a 10-minute video. I can tell you that much right now. So here we go. Neighborhood crime data doesn't belong in real estate sites. We recently decided not to add neighborhood crime data to redfin.com. We were considering this because we're very much focusing on answering all the questions people have when they're considering considering a home purchase. And we know that one of these questions is whether they'll feel safe in a given home or neighborhood. So they were thinking about adding data. I believe that Realtor.com did have data. I know that Truly.com did have data. So the big listing sites did have some of this data, or were considering including it. Now, why were they considering including it? Well, you want to have, to win the war on eyeballs, you want to have the best user experience, or you want to be able to show up and search, a better ranking in search. So by adding more data, any data at all that has to do with neighborhoods, you're going to beat out real estate IDX feeds like my own at my brokerage. Zillow and Realtor.com, they're getting millions of views, a month. I get like 30. So anyway, that's what they were thinking is, if we add this data, we can maybe get an advantage over one of the other major sites. But the data available doesn't allow us to speak accurately to that question. And given the long history of redlining and racist housing covenants in the United States, there's too great of a risk of this inaccuracy in reinforcing racial bias, which in itself is racist. This sentence is racist because you're already assuming a certain group is committing the crime, which is terrible. We believe that Redfin and all real estate sites should not show neighborhood crime data. That's what you should have stuck with. People are interested in safety, not crime. One big thing we learned through our research is that there's a variety in how people define and evaluate safety, and that it doesn't line up very well with purely crime-based data. When we survey people about what they want to know about a neighborhood, they define safety in a number of different ways. People variously say they care whether there's trash on the street, care solely about violent crime, or care whether they're going to frequently see people who are homeless. I agree with that. However, it's not a safety issue. I definitely care about crime, like violent crime directed at me, or nonviolent crime. But we'll get into that a bit later. Reported crimes may not accurately reflect actual crimes. Even if you narrow down the crime as an indicator of safety, there are reasons to doubt that the usefulness of the data available. The most straightforward source of crime data is the Uniform Crime Report from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which collects reported crimes from police departments across the country. Now, that's true, but certain police departments, I believe, aren't required. There's no requirement to report it, I believe. Now, even if they are required to report it, it's not like you necessarily see the data. For instance, in St. Louis County here, there's 99 different municipalities. Some choose to report their data in the county database, some don't. Most crimes in the United States go unreported, however, and most reported crimes go unsolved. Now, I don't know about that. I don't know about, I do think that many crimes are unreported, but most reported crimes go unsolved. The fact that most crimes are missing creates a real possibility that the crimes that show up in the data set skew one way or another. And the fact that most of reported crimes go unsolved means that some of the crimes being reported in fact may not be crimes. If you're extracting data at the neighborhood level, the risk of these gaps leading to inaccuracy becomes high. When I lived in Detroit, literally, it was block by block if you were in a good neighborhood or bad. Block by block, street by street. So, the idea that some large portal is going to be able to show crime over that small of an area, dicey. Crime surveys risk including racial bias. To get around the gaps within the reported crimes, the main other data source we considered was the National Crime Victimization Survey from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, which I didn't know existed. By virtue of being a survey, this has the advantage of being able to capture both officially reported and unreported crimes. However, also by virtue of being a survey, if there's racial bias in respondents' answers, this will get reflected directly in the data. And there are troubling signs of this. In 2019 survey, people reporting crimes were more likely to describe their offender as young, male, and black than would be expected given the representation of those groups in the population. Well, who knows? But you've opened up a big can of worms when you've written this, okay? Because who knows? Who knows who commits crimes? Okay? And you're saying they're being overrepresented, but you don't know what's going on. You have no idea because the data is wrong. So I think that was a bit outside the lines. And then he says, we'll weigh each and every decision to add data to the site. People are hungry for more data or more information to answer their real estate questions, and Redfin will continue to add more and more data to help with that. We know that whenever we add new data, however, there's the potential for it to change whether people decide to live and invest in a neighborhood, and to do so in ways that are impacted by historical and current bias. Each and every time we add data to redfin.com, we will consider the accuracy and likely impact of that change. Sometimes that will result in us deciding not to add data to the site, and sometimes that will result in us deciding to add the data. In this case, we're confident that the crime data that are available today ought not to be on Redfin or any other real estate site. Let's take this a step further. Okay, so I can go here now. Let's just take what's going on really quick. Redfin is a brokerage, okay? When you go to Redfin site, they're trying to steer you towards a Redfin agent. All right, let's get that clear. Realtor.com is going to do the same thing, but it's not going to be to a Redfin agent necessarily. It's whoever paid to be in that position. Zillow used to be the same way. However, they started to get into the iBuying and buying their own houses, and they got into the brokerage game. And so they're just totally, whatever they're doing now, I don't care, because Zillow doesn't mean anything to me anymore. They lied. So let's just understand that when Redfin does something, it's for the benefit of Redfin advertising. And when Realtor.com is doing it, it's for all agents, any of those who are able to pay to be a part of the site. So there is a difference there, a subtle difference. So let's go over some of the thoughts that I had. Number one, when he says people are interested in safety, not crime. Well, I'm pretty interested in crime. Let's not get this confused. The definition of safety and the definition of crime are a little loose here. I think that we can all agree on this. I'm interested in this. What is the likelihood a crime will be committed against me in this neighborhood versus another? And what will the nature of that crime be, i.e. murder, armed robbery, or property crime, like a car break-in? That's what people want to know. Unfortunately, no one knows what's going to happen in the future. I mean, you can think that something might be happening. You can paint an area with a brush, but you really have no idea. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Number two, do neighborhoods that reflect criminal acts have lower asking prices than neighborhoods that do not? Is this solely a reflection of crime, racism, or outdated resources and the lack of stores, community centers, etc.? So, most people say this house over here, like look in Kirkwood, house is $400,000, $600,000. A house in a different part of town, $100,000. Why is that? Is it just because of crime or the potential of crime? Is it racism? Is the area just not someplace where there's large stores that you can get to? I mean, what is the reason? So I don't think that it's solely because of crime reporting that those areas are where the asking prices and selling prices are less. Number three, buyers ask me whether or not a neighborhood is safe. As a real estate agent, they ask me all the time, hey, is this area safe? I have no way of answering that question properly. As an example, I find theft to be a terrible thing. If I thought theft in an area would be an issue, I would say a neighborhood's unsafe. Others might think only murder, assault, etc. are factors that make a neighborhood unsafe. Your comfort level is dependent on you. Some people say, if I can buy a 2,000 square foot house in a neighborhood that's dicey, that may be in transition, and I can buy it for less and someday sell it for twice as much, I'm going to live there. That's my opportunity. Okay. Who am I to say that's not a good idea? I mean, so as a real estate agent, that's kind of where I'm at. Number 4, we saw major urban areas overrun with protesters in 2020. How would that look in the crime statistics? Clearly, crime occurred, but people saw the crime in different ways. Some felt that it was justified. So now when we see crime, do we automatically say, well, this just happened this one time, and even though it destroyed a bunch of businesses and stuff, it wasn't real? It shouldn't be a determining factor in you moving there. It's never going to happen again. Also, when we go back to question 1, what is the likelihood a crime will be committed against me in a neighborhood versus another? And what will the nature of that crime be? We're trying to predict the future. The people that bought in these areas didn't know, most likely, that there was going to be mass protests in these areas. I would think. If they did, then they probably wouldn't have moved there. So the problem then is this idea of predicting crime, like predicting the weather. It's fraught with difficulty. In the context of likelihood of crime, could those that lived in these areas have known that there was going to be mass protests? And similarly, we assume areas are safe when they're not. Domestic disputes happen everywhere. Theft happens everywhere. In certain areas, crime will be reported with more fervor than the exact same crime somewhere else. And I don't know if that has to do with racism or economics or anything else. I just know that if someone gets murdered in one part of town, it gets on the news. If a guy kills his wife in another part of town, it's not even in the newspaper. I mean, it's very, very odd when you look at that stuff. And finally, we have a Walmart in Shrewsbury, Missouri. I tend to go there when I need to buy something. I feel totally safe when I go there. If you were to look on a crime map, however, you'd never go. Why? Well, a couple years ago, one homeless guy murdered another guy in the back alley of the store, and Walmart prosecutes every shoplifter they catch. So the area is constantly red and otherwise sea of green on a map. And this is the main issue for me. The crime data is collected differently throughout the United States, and much of the data is presented without context. This is why I think it's the right call to not include crime data on real estate listing websites. It's not about racism or any other ism. It's the fact that the data isn't accurate enough for someone to rely on. So I'm totally in the camp of not reporting crime statistics on a listings website, but it's not from this perspective of I'm trying to avoid racial bias or there's some sort of issue. That's got nothing to do with it. The data that's collected in the United States is poor. Don't put poor information on your website. That's all there is to it. So with that, I'm going to head out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.